holotable flickered under the pressure of the general's talons as he leaned forward, eyes scanning the shifting red dots that marked another failed offensive. He hissed, mandibles tightening. Another battalion routed. No survivors. No enemy signatures, just silence. His voice echoed through the war chamber, a cold metallic rasp that made even the Varketh lieutenants flinch. Around the chamber, high-ranking officers from across the Galactic Coalition stood rigid, many, with limbs crossed or appendages flexed in silent tension. The holomap rotated, casting spectral light on their faces as the general tapped one isolated point blinking intermittently. Sector 5-9. Snow-locked. Supposedly abandoned. The humans don't fight like warriors, he growled, spitting the word like venom. They fight like ghosts. One officer, a bulky Kravari with bone armor fused into its skin, rumbled in agreement. We've lost 12 units across 3 planets. Not to armies. To one. One human. There was silence. Not from disbelief, from fear. He does not engage. He does not respond. He waits. He breaks morale. He vanishes, the general said. We believe it is the same operator in each case. We've codenamed it Specter. The general's claw swiped across the interface. Images of fallen troops, their armor shattered by hyper-precise impacts, rotated around the room. All shots made from extreme distance. No exit wounds, no margin for error. There is no pattern, no rhythm. He is not a soldier. He is a message. A younger insectoid tapped into his datapad. We are assembling a kill team, multi-species. Elite, fully shielded and hardened against kinetic impacts. They will deploy on Zarnus 9, Arctic world, minimal cover, but it matches the profile. That's where he was last seen. The general nodded slowly. We'll bring the ghost into the light, dead or captured. This ends now. But it hadn't begun in the snow. The jungles of Orion's Nest were hot and wet, buzzing with venomous things that crept through the foliage and screamed in the trees. The alien battalion moved in formation, fanned out and cautious, scanning constantly. They were elite. They had fought mercenaries, pirates, and beasts. But they had never seen a man fight like this. First, the comms officer collapsed mid-step. No one heard a shot. He just crumpled forward into the undergrowth, helmet leaking red. Then another, then another. Panic spread like disease. Troops fired wildly into the trees. Smoke grenades blossomed and scanners lit up with noise. But nothing living. One soldier, a Sarathi scout, began to scream, clutching his eyes. Red! I saw red! In the trees! Then silence. When they retrieved the few intact bodies days later, their internal clocks showed time of death precisely 30 seconds apart. None of them had seen it coming. The dropship's pilot abandoned the LZ before his timer came due. Back at Coalition Command, whispers spread. Not among generals, among grunts, the foot soldiers sent in first. They gave the sniper names, passed, from unit to unit like bad luck. Red Eye, the watcher, the one who counts. And a saying, they wait for days, they see everything, they shoot through time. One grizzled veteran, a 3-armed Varnathi named Korotu, lost half his face when a bullet punched through a scope. Not his, but the one his comrade was wearing. It bent, he whispered once in an interview. The bullet bent mid-air, like it knew who it wanted. Another, a nervous, twitchy Valeri medic, refused to sleep if music played nearby. He played our song, our anthem, over the comms. That's how he started. Then the shots came. He made it personal. He watched us long enough to know what would hurt. Stories built upon stories. Fear grew roots. And now the Coalition wanted to end it. The transport craft whined through the atmosphere of Zarnus 9, descending through swirling snow and needle-like gusts. Inside sat the elite response team, one of every warrior species, armed with every conceivable advantage. Armor resistant to concussive force, sensor arrays that covered every spectrum, drones that mapped terrain in real time. They had trained in simulations, studied the terrain, reviewed every known file on Specter. It didn't help. The planet was white, endless, cold beyond reason. But the bunker was real, half-buried, ancient, its entrance yawning like a mouth mid-scream. As the squad approached, readings flickered. Heat signatures went dark. Their own footsteps echoed too loud. The engineer drone hovered forward, scanning for traps, then stopped. The door had no lock, no access point, no control panel. Instead, painted in ice-carved script only a human would recognize, was one word: knock. The team hesitated. Then the first mine went off, but it didn't kill. It played a song, a lullaby, human, childlike. The squad froze, weapons raised. Eyes scanned every ridge. They hadn't even entered the bunker, and already something was watching silently. The snow muffled everything: sound, motion, even time. Specter lay prone atop a frozen ridge, his body covered in reactive cloth designed to mimic the patterns of wind-swept ice. But it wasn't the suit that made him invisible. It was his stillness. For 7 hours he hadn't moved more than a breath. No tremble, no twitch. Just the rifle, resting in the crook of his shoulder, lens fogged slightly with the breath of a predator who didn't need to chase. Down in the basin, the alien squad fanned out cautiously, armored and jittery. Specter watched through the scope, not as a hunter, but as a sculptor evaluating raw marble. Each soldier a weakness, each movement a tell. His breathing stayed shallow. His pulse, regulated by years of mind control drills, did not spike. A hovercraft vent at 1.2 kilometers, spiraling, erratically. That shot had whistled through turbulence, heat shimmer, and a half-open panel. 1,000 tiny variables. A target obscured for only 0.4 seconds. That was years ago. Different planet. Different war. The shot didn't matter anymore. He didn't log kills. He logged silences. The more alone I am, the more powerful I become. That phrase had been drilled into him at Black Hollow, the sniper academy buried beneath the Rockies, so secret it didn't exist on any military ledger. The entrance was a frozen elevator shaft in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by fake rocks and abandoned radio towers. Once you went down, you didn't come back until they'd broken and rebuilt you. Black Hollow wasn't about marksmanship. It was about unlearning humanity. Anyone can shoot a rifle, the instructor said on the first day. We're here to teach you how to wait, how to be nothing. There were 20 recruits. By the end of month 3, only 9 remained. The rest had washed out or gone mad from isolation drills, thrown into separate wilderness domes for weeks with no sound, no food unless they earned it, and a loaded rifle they were told never to use, unless they had to. Patience wasn't a virtue at Black Hollow. It was a weapon. They trained to blend into alien biomes, deserts with gas storms, swamps with phosphorescent plants, worlds where the wind howled constantly and never in the same direction twice. Specter had passed his final test by lying still for 6 days in a glass coffin beneath 2 feet of dust on a moon with no breathable atmosphere. He drank through a tube and pissed into the suit. The target came on day 7. They taught him how to shoot through energy shields, map distortion waves, predict coil frequency. They drilled until their eyes could spot heat ripples in a blizzard and compensate for gravity shifts mid-shot. But most of all, they taught him how to disappear. Back in the snowfields of Zarnus 9, Specter moved now, only a finger on the remote trigger buried under the frozen dirt. The first trap was simple, a memory mine. One of the aliens stepped near the perimeter. A tiny burst of sound, just 5 seconds of a lullaby. Human. The soldier froze. Others turned toward him. Then the ground gave way. Not a hole. A collapse in the snowpack designed to resemble an accident. He was gone. Panic, small and crawling, crept through the others. One of them, Specter, recognized the gate as Varketh. 4-legged and proud, ran toward the fallen comrade's last location. He found a helmet half buried in the snow. Not his squad mates. His own. Inside was blood, neatly splashed on the inside, just enough to coat the visor. Music crackled softly inside the helmet. It was the Varketh warrior's own battle song. Custom file. Someone had been watching. The unit reeled in silence. They spread wider, comms buzzing. Specter heard every word. He watched from the ridge, unmoving. He wasn't here to kill them. Not yet. He was here to break them. Using captured footage from the aliens' own body cams, he uploaded a brief video to their closed network. Grainy footage of one of them. He'd spliced it masterfully, appearing to sabotage the nav beacon. He inserted a shadowed voice overlay, just enough to imply treason. Then he sent it anonymously through their encrypted relay. It didn't take long. Two of them began shouting, another stepped between them. Someone pushed. A weapon was drawn. Tension snapped like a stretched wire. Then a shot rang out, not Specter's. The Kravari soldier had gunned down the Volari medic, his teammate. For a long moment, even Specter stayed perfectly still, savoring the unraveling. He didn't have to fire. His mission wasn't to kill. It was to make them forget why they came, to turn them into animals, to dissolve the line between duty and survival. He smiled faintly beneath the mask. The war had already been lost. They just hadn't realized it yet. Snow swept over the broken remains of the squad's cohesion as the remaining aliens regrouped in a shallow depression, shielded by jagged ice formations. They were down to 5 now. Paranoia hung thick in the air, each soldier eyeing the others, not just with suspicion but dread. The commander, a sinewy Zalorth with a chitinous shell and optical implants, growled orders through clenched mandibles. Activate full spectrum. Launch every drone. Blanket this valley. I want his position. Or I want corpses. The drones scattered like black birds into the air, their wings humming with anti-static current. Snow disturbed by their rotors danced upward, then faded as the cold reclaimed the silence. Pulses radiated in concentric circles, sensors extended in thermal, kinetic, gravimetric, even neural fields. Nothing. Then one drone glitched. It spun slowly, in place its rotors whining in protest. It pivoted again, then lifted and circled the same spot 5 meters above the snow. The soldiers approached warily. Trap, one muttered. But the commander hesitated. The readings showed something. Not a life form, but a persistent anomaly in the ground temperature. Something pulsing beneath the ice. Too late they saw it. A controlled detonation, a deep, thudding whoomp echoed from the nearby ridge. Not lethal, just loud. It drew their attention like a whistle to dogs. As trained, they moved toward the blast, angling together across the narrow ice corridor between 2 ridges. Tactical pattern, flanks covered, helmets down, perfect. From 2,300 meters away, Specter watched through 3 separate optics. Wind was rising. Visibility would drop within minutes. It was enough. He fired once. The Kravari's helmet imploded like a popped fruit, the body sliding down the slope in a lazy sprawl. Second shot, double-jointed insectoid in the rear. Between segments precisely. Third shot, center of mass, but calculated to knock the victim into the fourth. A moment of chaos. They scattered like prey beneath a hawk's shadow. All sense of formation abandoned. The snow churned under them as they fled in different directions, shouting into comms that no longer connected. Specter did not chase. He waited. In his mind, the voice of an old ghost returned. The last human commander he ever served under. A man named Hark, lean and gray-eyed, who led with silence more often than orders. Anyone can shoot when they're angry, Hark had said. A real sniper waits until the soul breaks. That's the kill that never heals. Mars had taught him that. A mission where Specter had waited 87 days in the shadow of a collapsed dome. The target, a Martian rebel captain, never came. The mission was scrubbed, no shot fired, but Specter had stayed. Even after extraction was approved, he stayed in case the target came. No regrets. Sometimes not firing was the point. The discipline wasn't physical, it was spiritual. Sniping wasn't war, it was worship of silence, of control, of timing. Now, in the frozen jaws of Zarnus 9, that same lesson echoed. 2 remained. They regrouped in desperation beside the ruins of the drone uplink, faces smeared with ice and grief. They tried to call for reinforcements, punching coordinates into trembling fingers, sobbing breath fogging up inside their masks. The screen blinked. A message appeared. "You're already dead." This was a lesson. It was in their language. Local, dialect, perfect grammar. One of them dropped his weapon. His eyes darted to the horizon, then to the rifle in his own hands. Slowly, without ceremony, he turned it around. The crack was muffled by the snow. Now one remained. The last soldier didn't run. He sat and laughed. Not a mad laugh. A broken one. A child's laugh in the mouth of something that no longer believed in anything but inevitability. Up on the ridge, Specter didn't fire. He packed his rifle and vanished. The recovery ship found the last alien soldier 2 days later, half buried in snow, staring up at nothing. His armor had frost-locked at the joints, forcing the medics to cut him out like a fossil from ice. He didn't resist. He didn't speak until he was safe aboard the heated infirmary chamber. Then, in a voice that sounded like it belonged to someone else, he muttered, "He never even fired a shot, and I lost everything." No one understood what he meant. Not fully. Not until they reviewed the comm logs. Not until they saw how, one by one, the squad had unraveled without ever confirming a single visual on their enemy. No body. No clear sensor ping. No heat trace. Just missing friends, distorted messages, hallucinations perhaps if they believed such a thing existed on the battlefield. But the effects were real, and they spread like rot. At the Galactic Coalition Tribunal, an emergency session convened to address the incident on Zarnus 9. Delegates from 16 species argued across a multi-spectrum chamber filled with blinking lights and pulse-reactive interfaces. The footage had gone viral, leaked. An anonymous source, though everyone suspected the humans allowed it to be found. The footage showed broken soldiers begging the snow for mercy, screaming at each other over imagined betrayals. And one, just one, firing on himself. "This is not warfare," snapped a delegate from the Narcoon Accord, long-limbed and known for their strict martial codes. "This is terror refined into a surgical instrument." A Varnathi ambassador, a gelatinous entity housed in a containment sphere, shivered visibly through their fluid. "We would rather face tanks than ghosts," others murmured in agreement. The term sniper had taken on a new meaning in the galactic lexicon. Not a soldier. Not even an assassin. A phenomenon. Some proposed banning snipers altogether. Others suggested all warfare be conducted with declared weapons and mandatory distance regulations. The humans, sitting quietly in their assigned seat at the rear, didn't speak. They didn't need to. The war logs were proof enough. In one of the final declassified reports, Specter had not taken a single life with a rifle. Instead, he had spent 49 days dismantling a supply corridor behind enemy lines. Not by bombing it. Not by destroying entire depots. He waited until a food convoy was 2 kilometers into a frozen ravine, then fired a single shot into the ice dam upstream. The avalanche buried the path. He then cut the power relay using a sonic round that destabilized the anchor crystal from beneath the soil, an angle no one expected. Next, the communication uplink. A single silent detonation disabled the auxiliary transponder and rerouted signals into static loops, creating the illusion of sabotage from within. The army stationed in the outpost? They never saw an enemy. They starved. They turned on each other. "A dead soldier is tragic," Specter had once written in a recovered field log, encrypted in an obsolete code. "A starving army is disbanded. A betrayed one never reforms." That was how wars ended. Not with flags raised, not with corpses piled, with doubt and dread. Now, somewhere beyond the tribunal's noise and outrage, across an unnamed snowy world beneath a pale, flickering aurora, a single figure moved through the cold. Specter, if that was still his name, walked along a high ridge, his silhouette barely more than a shadow against the sky. He didn't carry a rifle in his hands. It was stored. No enemies today. No mission, no orders. Only silence. He stopped, turned toward the valley below and listened. The wind whispered through broken trees over fallen towers across ruins of places that once held certainty. There were no screams. No gunfire. But there were memories, and memories were louder. He turned, stepped forward, and vanished into the whiteness as if he'd never existed. They don't hate us because we kill. They hate us because we never let them forget.